The morning mist clung to the towering pines of the Cascade Wildlife Sanctuary as Dr. Sarah Chun made her routine rounds through the rehabilitation center. 23 years of working with injured raptors had taught her to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to witness. If this story moves you, drop a heart in the comments. The sanctuary housed dozens of recovering birds of prey, each with their own tragic backstory of human interference, weather disasters, or territorial disputes gone wrong. In the largest flight enclosure, a magnificent golden eagle named Titan stretched his 7-foot wingspan, testing the strength that had been slowly returning to his left wing over the past 4 months. The massive bird had arrived at the sanctuary with a shattered wing bone, the result of a collision with a power line during a fierce winter storm. His recovery had been nothing short of miraculous, thanks to the dedicated care of the sanctuary staff and Titan's own fierce determination to heal. Dr. Chun paused at the observation window, clipboard in hand, ready to document Titan's progress for his upcoming release evaluation. The eagle had been demonstrating excellent flight patterns, his hunting instincts remained sharp, and his territorial behavior indicated he was ready to return to his mountain domain. She lifted her binoculars to observe his morning routine when something small and black caught her peripheral vision. A tiny kitten, no more than 6 weeks old, had somehow managed to squeeze through a gap in the outer perimeter fence. The little creature was jet black except for a small white patch on its chest, and it was clearly lost, mewing pitifully as it wandered into the restricted area where the flight enclosures stood. Dr. Chin's heart clenched as she watched the vulnerable kitten stumble through the tall grass, completely unaware of the dangers surrounding it. Golden eagles were apex predators, capable of taking prey as large as young deer. A kitten of this size would be considered an easy meal for a raptor of Titan's caliber. Dr. Chin immediately reached for her radio to call for backup, knowing she needed to rescue the kitten before any of the birds noticed its presence. But as she lifted the device to her lips, something extraordinary happened that would change everything she thought she knew about predator and prey relationships. Titan had spotted the kitten. The great eagle's amber eyes locked onto the small black form moving through the grass below his enclosure. Dr. Chun held her breath, expecting the worst. Golden eagles were known for their incredible eyesight and lightning-fast hunting reflexes. She watched in horror as Titan launched himself from his perch, his powerful wings carrying him in a swift, purposeful flight pattern toward the ground. The kitten, sensing movement above, looked up with wide green eyes just as Titan's massive talons reached down. Dr. Chin gasped, certain she was about to witness a tragedy. But instead of the violent scene she expected, something miraculous unfolded before her eyes. Titan's talons, capable of exerting over 750 pounds of pressure per square inch, closed around the kitten with the gentleness of a mother's embrace. The eagle lifted the tiny creature carefully, his grip firm but protective, and carried it away from the dangerous area near the other enclosures. Dr. Chin stood frozen in amazement as she watched Titan land on a raised platform in the center of his enclosure, the kitten still secure in his grasp. The little black creature should have been terrified, should have been struggling or crying out in fear, but instead, it seemed remarkably calm. Titan gently released the kitten onto the wooden platform and stepped back, his massive head tilting as he studied the small visitor. The kitten, rather than running away, began to purr softly and approached the enormous bird. Dr. Chen rubbed her eyes, certain she was hallucinating. In all her years of wildlife rehabilitation, she had never witnessed anything like this. The eagle lowered his great head, and the kitten, showing no fear whatsoever, nuzzled against Titan's beak. The sight was so surreal that Dr. Chun had to grip the observation window frame to steady herself. She quickly reached for her camera, knowing that no one would believe this incredible scene without photographic evidence. As she watched through her lens, Titan began to exhibit behaviors she had never seen before. The eagle positioned himself protectively around the kitten, his wings slightly spread to create a sheltered space. When a red-tailed hawk in a nearby enclosure let out a sharp cry, Titan immediately stepped closer to the kitten, his posture clearly defensive. It was as if the mighty predator had appointed himself as the tiny creature's guardian. Dr. Chin's mind raced as she tried to process what she was witnessing. Golden eagles were solitary creatures, fiercely territorial and protective only of their own young. The maternal or paternal instincts that might explain this behavior should not have been triggered by a kitten. Yet here was Titan, one of the most powerful raptors in North America, treating this vulnerable little creature as if it were his own offspring. The mystery deepened when Dr. Chun noticed something else remarkable. The kitten was not just any ordinary stray. As she focused her camera lens, she could see that the little creature had a slight deformity in its left front leg, a subtle limp that matched almost perfectly with the way Titan favored his recently healed left wing. Both animals had suffered injuries to their left side. Both had experienced trauma and recovery, and both had learned to adapt to their physical challenges. Could it be possible that Titan recognized a kindred spirit in this tiny, vulnerable creature? Dr. Chun had read studies about animals forming unusual bonds based on shared experiences, but she had never witnessed it firsthand. The more she observed, the more convinced she became that something profound was happening between these two unlikely companions. Over the next several hours, Dr. Chun documented their interactions with growing amazement. Titan remained constantly vigilant, his keen eyes scanning the surrounding area for any potential threats to his small charge. When the kitten grew hungry and began to mew, the eagle actually attempted to regurgitate food for it, a behavior typically reserved for feeding eagle chicks. The kitten, of course, was not interested in the partially digested fish and small mammals that constituted Titan's diet, but the gesture was unmistakably parental. By afternoon, word had spread throughout the sanctuary about the extraordinary situation developing in Titan's enclosure. Dr. Marcus Webb, the sanctuary's director, arrived with a team of veterinarians and animal behaviorists to witness the phenomenon firsthand. The group gathered at the observation window, their professional skepticism quickly giving way to wonder as they watched the golden eagle and the black kitten interact. The kitten had found a comfortable spot nestled against Titan's side, the eagle's massive body providing warmth and security. Titan's breathing was slow and steady, his eyes half closed in contentment. It was a picture of interspecies harmony that defied every natural law they knew about predator and prey relationships. Dr. Webb, a man who had dedicated his life to understanding animal behavior, shook his head in amazement. In 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation, he had never seen anything comparable. He began to formulate theories about what might have triggered this unprecedented behavior. Perhaps Titan's extended time in captivity had altered his natural instincts. Maybe the trauma of his injury and recovery had created an emotional vulnerability that made him more receptive to forming unusual bonds. As the day progressed, the sanctuary staff faced a dilemma. The kitten clearly needed medical attention, proper nutrition, and eventual placement in a suitable home. But separating the two animals now seemed not only cruel, but potentially harmful to both. Titan had shown no interest in food since the kitten's arrival, his entire focus devoted to protecting his small companion. The kitten, meanwhile, seemed to thrive under the eagle's protection, showing none of the stress behaviors typically associated with trauma or abandonment. Dr. Chun volunteered to stay overnight to monitor the situation, setting up a cot in the observation room. As darkness fell over the sanctuary, she watched through night vision equipment as Titan carefully arranged himself around the sleeping kitten. The eagle's wings created a protective canopy, shielding the small creature from the cool mountain air. It was a sight that brought tears to her eyes, a reminder of the profound capacity for compassion that existed in the natural world. The next morning brought new challenges and revelations. The kitten was clearly hungry, and despite Titan's attempts to provide food, it needed proper nutrition designed for a young feline. Dr. Chin carefully entered the enclosure, expecting Titan to become defensive or aggressive. Instead, the eagle watched her approach with calm intelligence, as if he understood that she was there to help. The kitten, emboldened by Titan's acceptance of the human visitor, approached Dr. Chun with surprising confidence. As she examined the little creature, she discovered something that made her gasp in recognition. Hidden beneath the kitten's thick black fur was a small metal tag, barely visible but clearly present. The tag bore the logo of a local animal rescue organization and a phone number. Within hours, Dr. Chun had traced the kitten's origins to a heartbreaking story that explained everything. The little black kitten, named Shadow by his previous caretakers, had been rescued from a construction site where his mother and siblings had been killed by heavy machinery. He had been in the care of volunteer foster parents who specialized in raising orphan kittens. 3 days earlier, Shadow had escaped from their home during a thunderstorm, the same storm that had brought down several trees and damaged the sanctuary's perimeter fencing. The foster parents, an elderly couple named Robert and Margaret Foster, arrived at the sanctuary that afternoon with tears in their eyes and gratitude in their hearts. They had been searching desperately for Shadow, fearing the worst when they couldn't find him after the storm. The sight of their tiny charge safe and protected under the wing of a golden eagle left them speechless. Margaret Foster, a retired veterinarian herself, immediately understood the significance of what they were witnessing. She explained that Shadow had been the sole survivor of his litter, traumatized by the loss of his family and struggling to adapt to life without his mother's protection. The kitten had been exhibiting signs of depression and anxiety, refusing to bond with other cats or even with his human caretakers. The parallel between Shadow's story and Titan's journey became clear to everyone present. Both animals had experienced profound loss and trauma. Both had been forced to survive against overwhelming odds. Both had spent months in rehabilitation, learning to trust again and heal from their physical and emotional wounds. In finding each other, they had discovered something that neither had been able to find elsewhere: a companion who truly understood their pain and their strength. Dr. Webb faced an unprecedented decision. Titan was scheduled for release evaluation within the week, his wing having healed completely and his flight capabilities fully restored. Shadow needed continued care and eventual placement in a permanent home. The logical solution was to separate them immediately, allowing both animals to continue on their intended paths. But the emotional bond between them was undeniable, and forcing a separation seemed cruel and potentially harmful. The sanctuary staff spent hours debating the best course of action. Some argued that keeping the animals together was anthropomorphizing their relationship, projecting human emotions onto natural behaviors. Others maintained that the bond was genuine and that separating them would cause unnecessary suffering. The debate continued into the evening, with passionate arguments on both sides. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a specialist in animal psychology who had been consulting on the case, suggested a radical approach. Rather than making an immediate decision, why not allow the animals themselves to determine the outcome? She proposed a carefully controlled experiment that would test the strength of their bond while respecting both animals' natural needs. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Shadow would be moved to a separate enclosure within sight of Titan's habitat, close enough for them to see and hear each other, but far enough apart to allow both animals to function independently. If their bond was genuine, they would show signs of distress at the separation. If it was merely circumstantial, they would adapt quickly to being apart. The experiment began the following morning. Shadow was gently moved to a smaller enclosure about 50 feet from Titan's habitat, with clear sight lines between the two spaces. The reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. Titan began calling out with a series of high-pitched cries that Dr. Chun had never heard him make before. The eagle paced restlessly along the fence line closest to Shadow's enclosure, his agitation obvious to everyone watching. Shadow's response was equally dramatic. The kitten refused to eat, spending his time pressed against the fence facing Titan's enclosure, mewing constantly in what could only be described as distress calls. Both animals showed clear signs of separation anxiety, their bond proving to be far more than mere convenience or circumstance. After just 6 hours of separation, Dr. Webb made the decision to reunite them. The moment Shadow was returned to Titan's enclosure, both animals visibly relaxed. Titan immediately positioned himself protectively around the kitten, while Shadow settled against the eagle's side with obvious relief. The reunion was so moving that several staff members found themselves wiping away tears. The implications of this extraordinary relationship extended far beyond the sanctuary walls. Dr. Rodriguez began documenting their interactions for a research paper that would challenge conventional understanding of interspecies bonding. The story attracted attention from wildlife biologists, animal behaviorists, and media outlets around the world. But for the staff at the Cascade Wildlife Sanctuary, the focus remained on the welfare of their two remarkable residents. A solution began to emerge through the generosity of the Foster family. Robert and Margaret, deeply moved by the bond between Titan and Shadow, made an unprecedented offer. They owned a large property adjacent to the sanctuary, with open meadows and mature forests that would provide ideal habitat for a golden eagle. They proposed creating a specialized enclosure that would allow Titan to live in semi-wild conditions while maintaining his relationship with Shadow. The proposal required extensive planning and coordination with wildlife authorities. Golden eagles were protected under federal law, and any long-term captivity required special permits and justification. Dr. Webb worked tirelessly with government agencies to secure the necessary approvals, arguing that Titan's unique situation warranted special consideration. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rodriguez's preliminary research data showed that both animals exhibited measurably lower stress levels when together compared to when separated. The physiological evidence of their mutual benefit provided the scientific justification needed to approve the unconventional arrangement. Construction began on the specialized habitat within weeks. The enclosure would span nearly 2 acres, with natural perches, a small pond, and carefully designed features that would allow Titan to express his natural behaviors while keeping Shadow safe. The design included a heated shelter for the kitten and multiple levels that would accommodate both animals' different needs. As the habitat neared completion, both animals seemed to sense that change was coming. Titan's behavior became more protective, if that was possible, while Shadow grew more adventurous, exploring every corner of their temporary enclosure with renewed confidence. Their bond had given both animals something precious, a sense of security that allowed them to heal not just physically, but emotionally. The day of the move to their new home arrived with a mixture of excitement and nervousness from the sanctuary staff. Titan was transported first, his powerful form surveying the expanded territory with obvious approval. When Shadow was introduced to the space, the kitten's reaction was pure joy. He raced around the enclosure, climbing on specially installed cat trees and exploring every hiding spot, all while staying within sight of his protective companion. The first night in their new home was a test of the habitat's design and the strength of their relationship. Dr. Chun maintained a vigil from the observation blind, watching as Titan and Shadow settled into their evening routine. The eagle chose a high perch that provided a clear view of the entire enclosure, while Shadow curled up in his heated shelter, positioned so he could see Titan's silhouette against the starlit sky. Weeks passed, and the unlikely pair thrived in their new environment. Titan's hunting instincts remained sharp as he caught fish from the pond and small prey that entered the enclosure naturally. Shadow grew stronger and more confident, his injured leg healing well under the continued care of the sanctuary veterinarians. Most remarkably, both animals maintained their extraordinary bond while developing more natural behaviors in their expanded habitat. The story of Titan and Shadow began to attract visitors from around the world. The sanctuary established educational programs around their relationship, using their story to teach about empathy, resilience, and the unexpected connections that could form between different species. Children were especially captivated by the tale, often drawing pictures of the eagle and kitten that now decorated the sanctuary's visitor center. Dr. Chen found herself changed by the experience of witnessing and documenting their relationship. The bond between Titan and Shadow had challenged her scientific understanding while reinforcing her belief in the emotional complexity of the animals she worked with. She began incorporating their story into her lectures at the veterinary college, using their relationship as an example of the healing power of companionship. As months passed, Shadow grew from a tiny kitten into a sleek young cat, his black coat gleaming with health and his green eyes bright with intelligence. Titan remained his constant guardian, the eagle's protective instincts never wavering despite Shadow's increasing independence. Their relationship evolved but never diminished, adapting to Shadow's changing needs while maintaining the deep emotional connection that had saved them both. The sanctuary staff often marveled at the lessons these two animals had taught them about the nature of family, protection, and love. Titan had shown that the capacity for compassion could transcend species boundaries, while Shadow had demonstrated that trust and healing were possible even after profound trauma. Together, they had created something beautiful and unprecedented, a relationship that defied natural law while embodying the most natural thing of all, the need for connection and care. Visitors to the sanctuary would often ask about the future of this unusual pair. Would they remain together indefinitely? What would happen as Shadow aged and Titan's protective instincts might change? The staff had learned not to make predictions about these two remarkable animals. Their relationship had already surprised everyone involved, and there was no telling what new chapters their story might contain. As winter approached their first year together, both animals showed signs of preparing for the seasonal changes in their own ways. Titan's behavior became more focused on securing and defending territory, while Shadow developed a thicker coat and showed increased interest in the heated areas of their enclosure. Their bond remained constant through these adaptations, a testament to the deep connection that had formed between them. The research data collected by Dr. Rodriguez continued to reveal fascinating insights about their relationship. Both animals showed synchronized stress responses, their cortisol levels rising and falling in tandem. When one animal was calm, the other exhibited similar physiological markers of relaxation. The data suggested that their bond operated on a level deeper than simple companionship, approaching something more like emotional symbiosis. On a crisp autumn morning, exactly 1 year after their first meeting, Dr. Chin stood at the observation window watching Titan and Shadow in their daily routine. The eagle perched majestically on his favorite branch while the cat sunned himself on a nearby platform, both animals content in each other's presence. The sight never failed to move her, a reminder of the extraordinary capacity for love and protection that existed in the natural world. The story of the eagle who kidnapped a kitten had become legend, but the reality was far more beautiful than any tale. Titan had not kidnapped Shadow, he had rescued him. In that moment of recognition, when the great predator saw not prey but a fellow survivor, something magical had happened. Two broken souls had found each other and discovered that healing was possible when you didn't have to face the world alone. Their relationship continued to evolve and deepen, a living testament to the power of compassion to transcend every boundary. In a world often focused on division and difference, Titan and Shadow offered a different message, that love could bloom in the most unexpected places, between the most unlikely companions, and that sometimes the greatest strength came not from standing alone, but from choosing to protect and cherish another vulnerable soul.